they see the power of social, right? And they see this new coming of the digital age that we're entering. And so I would just highly recommend anyone who hasn't jumped into this space to really put a strong step forward and do so, because I think the people who go and achieve at the highest levels over the next decade are going to be the people who are operating in the online world.
Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about Ryan. Okay, everyone. So Ryan has over 2.6 million followers on Instagram. If you know anything about that, that is very difficult to do. All right. So he's definitely an influencer. He's a 7-figure digital entrepreneur, an influencer, an investor, a press contributor, and a speaker. He has been globally recognized. Social media marketing. It's called Social Revelation, which actually helps businesses and personal brands increase their digital footprint and brand awareness online. His company manages the social media strategy for several 7 to 8 figure earners who are top performers in their industry. And he's curated a personal online network of around 4 million people from around the world, which is insane to me. Ryan is also featured on various entrepreneurial and business podcasts such as Entrepreneurs on Fire. Love John Lee Dumas.
Great guy.
Underdog Empowerment, The Daily Grind, No Excuse Show, Millionaire's Hot Seat, and Good Morning LA, which is great. So thank you so much for being here. I am just going to let you take over because we are excited to have you. We have guests like you over the next couple of weeks because we want to inspire and motivate people and help them get past their fear. So thank you, Ryan.
Yes, I appreciate you for having me. I'm fired up. I'm excited. I appreciate you for having me on. And these are exciting times. You know, we're living in 2022, which is a digital age. And so there's just such a need, as you mentioned, of having an online brand, an online reputation. So inevitably, you can go and earn money from anywhere in the world. And so it's funny because I was down visiting South Georgia, which is where you're hearing the Southern accent from last week. And, my parents, they just come from a different generation. And so I guarantee you, if you invited, one of my parents on here and asked them, can you explain what Ryan does for a living for $1 million? I don't think they still would fully understand exactly what I do. But the reality is they see the power of social, right? And they see this new coming of the digital age that we're entering. And so I would just highly recommend anyone who hasn't jumped into this space to really put a strong step forward and do so, because I think the people who go and achieve at the highest levels over the next decade are going to be the people who are operating in the online world.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk a little bit about that. So right now, what I understand is whether you are a business owner or where you have a large business, or you have a business that is a local based business, or maybe you just have you're just barely getting into a new business. Can you talk about, it's hard for some people to just kind of jump into the online, I hear a lot of things like, oh, I feel like I'm too old, or I'm not good with technology, or this is hard. How would you help people get past that mental roadblock to kind of step into the online presence?
Well, when you say that, a quote comes to mind, and it's you don't have to be great at something to start, but you have to start to be great at something. And so it's this whole idea. When I first got started with Instagram specifically, I had less than 1,000 followers. I had no idea what I was doing. I spent very little time on social media. And the only thing that I really know for sure was that I was unhappy at 27 years old at the place I was in, and I was ready for things to change. And so I knew that obviously if I wanted things to change, then the things I was doing each day must change. And so when I started down this journey of building a social media following and starting a business, right, that's now turned into a 7-figure business, I really didn't have a whole lot of clarity or direction in that. And I think that I want people to understand that that's okay. You don't have to have everything figured out in order to get started. The biggest thing is having courage to take that strong step forward, because, and that's not to say that fear is not going to be there when you do that, right? I know when I started this journey, I had anxiety, I was fearful, but remember, courage comes from acting in spite of that fear. And so I just remember waking up every day. I started doing a whole lot of research on how to really go and build a brand. And so my whole headspace was, I want to be an entrepreneur. I don't really know what that's going to look like, but I've had a vision of that since I was 10 years old. And I know that it'll be easier if I have a following. And so the first thing that I started doing was growing my Instagram. And I started studying, the Russell Brunsons. I know you're affiliated with him, and I've worked with Dean and Tony and Grant Cardone. And I started really just studying other entrepreneurs who were crushing it. And I was just a student, So I've listened to a couple episodes of you before I came on here just to kind of prepare myself. And one thing that you say that I absolutely love and I agree with is find people who have what you want and do what they do, right? Be smart enough to listen to them. And so I started, really analyzing what they were doing, what was working well, reaching out, making connections. And next thing you know, I was growing my personal Instagram, tens of thousands of followers per month. And it was interesting because in that moment, it almost created a launch pad into people reaching out saying, hey, can you go and help me do this same thing? And lo and behold, almost a business fell in my lap after 6 months. I had no intention of creating a social media agency, but the key is the action is what led inevitably to the 7-figure business.
Oh, see, I love what he's saying. And he's saying, like, I had no idea what I was doing. I had no idea how to start, but like that quote, in order to get good at something, you have to start. You don't start and you're already good, and not be fearful. And it's something just kind of fell into his lap. I mean, I have to say, Ryan, that is difficult. I mean, I'm on social media all the time. And I mean, millions of followers, it's like, it seems difficult, to even, it's hard to fathom it. You've been able to capture that so quickly. Can you tell us some of the tricks, because we are, social media is our gig. We love being online, digital marketing. Tell us some of I know there's not one thing, but what are a few things that you think that people can do to help them kind of fast track their success online?
100%. So what I would recommend to everyone, what I kind of teach is, number one, I wrote a piece for Forbes that actually kind of talks about the 5 phases of branding. And it really starts in the first phase of intention, which is really getting clear on, number one, like, how do you want to be perceived? What type of content, obviously, do you want to go and put out there? Because first impressions are huge. And so when I first started, I was actually a baseball instructor. That was my first love. And so for me specifically, I was posting a lot of baseball content, from pitching, coaching, base running. And I was basically going after people who kind of would connect with that. And so the idea is find pages that already have built an audience, right? So I was going and I was interacting with the people following accounts like Major League Baseball, the Atlanta Braves, right? I'm a Braves fan, Georgia boy, Mike Trout, so people who would have a large following of people that would already be interested in my specific niche. And the idea is I would wake up every single day and I would make it a point that I would connect with 100 different individuals. And so I would go in there and what is a connection? I would go and I would follow the page. I would actually like the top 3, their most recent post. And then I would leave a genuine value-driven comment. And you can imagine doing this compound effect over time, 100 people every day, it started to bring awareness back to myself. And so what would happen was people would click and they'd be like, who is this Ryan guy who followed me, liked my post, is commenting on my stuff? And when they would click through to my profile and they saw that I was a baseball instructor putting out also good content. So good content's key. You have to give value to people. You got to give a reason. You got to give a reason for people to want to follow you. That's key. And so, but the idea is if you get people there and the content's good and you already know that they're interested in that niche, conversions actually happen very, very easily. And we were seeing upwards of a 40% conversion rate from, so that's if I reach out to 100 people, I was getting over 40 people who would actually come and follow me back. And I was building genuine relationships from that. And so the whole idea is not to just go and do mindless activity on social, because you hear that a lot. It's like, hey, get on the platform, spend time, reply to everybody's comments and reach out. But I think you got to take it a little bit deeper than that. I think it's more about intentional activity with the right people that really makes the difference.
Was it hard to manage? I mean, 100 people a day commenting, and now, I mean, you've got millions of followers. How do you still continue to keep it personal, respond, all that good stuff?
And well, the reality is, when you first start, you don't have a ton of money, a ton of capital, so you have time. So I was starting, I was spending most of my time on there trying to build something. And then naturally, like with anything, as you get bigger and you start making money, you can buy people's time. And so now we kind of have built out a team. I actually have a service offering now with my agency where we watch a lot of people's stories. So and this is a golden nugget for everyone on the call, but one thing that you can do is if you kind of take the same approach of the follow, like, and comment on people who would have that kind of predetermined interest, right? If you start watching people's active stories and do that consistently, what we've found over the last 12 months or so is that you watch someone's story, if I came in and I was watching Krista's story, for a week straight, and you would recognize that because most people are keeping eyes on who's kind of watching their stuff. And we've noticed that a lot of it's created a lot of clickback to our profile. And so people are reaching out and they're saying, hey, thank you for watching my stuff. I really want to get connected with you. I see you do social, kind of, can you help me? And so it's great for lead generation. And so one thing that you can do is just start watching people's stories. And so I've built out a team now for myself here, and this is kind of where I'm tying the knot here, is on my profile with my team, we watch about 5,000 stories every single day. So I have a pretty massive team on the back end that's doing this. But yeah, 5,000 stories a day. And so when you take a compound effect of that, and we've been doing that for the last year, we're really starting to rank up how many people are becoming aware of my profile. And then again, so follower growth, I tell people, is nothing more than just driving traffic. The more traffic you can drive, the more you're going to see your metrics increase over time.
So you are having your team is on your behalf watching up to 5,000 stories a day.
Correct. That is correct.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And so to kind of make it easier, I'm lucky enough that one of my best friends was in college was a coder. He was a software designer. And so when I find things that work like on a small level, I'm able to kind of get with him and say, hey, can you create me a software to go do this like at a max level? And so I kind of have that ace in my back pocket that not a lot of people have, but it's been great over the years because I've been able to kind of take the things that I see myself manually doing and really scale it with software.
Yes, I love it. So
technology is key.
Technology does everything now. Great. Okay. So in other words, commenting on other people, following people's stories, engaging, it's funny. Gary Vaynerchuk said the same thing. He says that he used to every single day when he first started is that he would go and locally, he would go and comment on, anywhere from 20 to 100 different people's things locally. And then he would do it on the people that he wanted to follow. And then he just started to grow his, so you got to put the time in, right? And
100%.
You got to put that. And I like what Ryan is saying is that he just started. He didn't know exactly what to do or how to do it or what the outcome would be, but he took action, right? He took imperfect action that just led into, now he has millions of followers. He has built, 7-figure business as a young man. I mean, you're under 30, I would assume-ish.
Yeah. So in June, I just had my 32nd birthday.
32nd. Okay. So that kind of gives a little perspective. So he said he started at 27, which Correct. Is 5 years. And I bet you people always tell you, oh my gosh, it seems like it just happened overnight. Do you hear that?
All the time. And so what's interesting is, you understand that I come from a sports background. Like my dad was my high school baseball coach from the time I could walk till I graduated high school. So I'm a coach's son. So I've naturally been a competitive person my whole life. And so when I got done playing collegiate sports, I kind of turned into, obviously I became a baseball instructor, but I inevitably knew that I wanted to transfer that skill set and that competitive edge into business, into entrepreneurship. And so I kind of took that on when I started this business. And what's interesting is a lot of people kind of say, man, it just seems like everything you touch kind of turns to gold, because we went 0 to 7 figures in 18 months. So that's another part of my story, is it was very quick. And so both my parents are school teachers. I'm from a town of 3,300 people. We don't even have a red light in the town I'm from. It's called Lakeland, Georgia. Feel free to look it up. But my point is I had no direction. I had no one showing me kind of what to do. But what I can say is, again, when you just kind of get started and you really start to pay attention to those who have walked the path that you're trying to go down, you can really streamline things very, very quickly.
And so I bet you, I've been doing a lot of trainings recently with Tony Robbins, and he talks about this mastery and repetition, and how, people that are successful, there's one thing that they have in common, or a couple of things. One of them is they have momentum, and they're able to create momentum, before they have results by seeing the end result in their mind first, right? Creating that end result in their mind, but then they're constantly repeating. It's a repeating what they're doing, like just relentlessly repetition and taking massive action. And then he says how important it is to model someone that's already done it. He likes to collapse decades into years. He likes to collapse years into months. And he does that by modeling somebody that has done really well. And that's exactly what I've done. I mean, relentless in this study of Russell Brunson, of my mentors, and that's what you have to do. I think a lot of people, they think they can just watch a training or go to a class and then boom, it should be there, or it should happen in 6 months or happen in a year. It's just not the case.
Yeah, not at all. And to that point, it's interesting because I tell people a lot of times, if you come and shadowed me for a day, you probably know what I've done, honestly, the last 36 months. And it's the consistency of me showing up every day. I have this saying in front of me that I write down, and it's like lay a brick. And it's just the idea of like, even on days you don't feel like it, or you feel like the needle's not moving much, show up and lay a brick. Because the more you can show up and lay a brick, you look back at 6 months and you start to realize, wow, look at this tower of bricks that I've actually built. And so it's almost in the day-to-day can sometimes seem mundane and like you're not accomplishing much. But if you just kind of take it and focus on putting one foot in front of the other, Mount Everest, doesn't seem as big as a task that you have to, it's not a huge obstacle you must climb. If you just focus on putting one foot in front of the other, what I've noticed is when I look back 6 months later, I'm like, holy cow, like I'm already 60% of the way up this thing. And it's enlightening, it's energizing, it's empowering. And obviously you want to continue to push forward. And the final note that I'll say on what you just said was, if you're not a reader, I know a lot of people hate reading. And I honestly I never read much books until I honestly got into entrepreneurship, because I realized a positivity flow daily in your life is so huge. You have to have that. But a book is literally, a lot of times it's someone who spent their whole life, right, over 10 years studying something, researching something, and put it into a book that you can consume in 2 or 3 hours. And so it's like, that was mind blowing to me when I figured this out. I was like, I can read a book and literally get 10 years of someone's dedicated everyday life. And I can have that knowledge in 2 or 3 hours. And so now I read 2 books a month. I make it a point to read 2 books a month, because when I started that process, I mean, it literally, I saw my business 2, 3, 4x very, very quickly. Yeah. And I think it's to your point of just following the path other people have already spent the time and energy doing, and compressing, like Tony said, timeframes. You're compressing timeframes down.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk really quickly, because, I'm a coach. And so sometimes, I'm literally teaching people how to build their business and how to completely what they've been taught to 360 it, do it totally differently. And people are investing and they think that they should see the results right away. And I like what you said about just keep going when you're not seeing the results, keep laying a brick. What is your advice? I know you're a young man, 32 years old, 7-figure earner, right? From studying and modeling. What would you tell people are there any strategies or tactics that you would recommend when people are working and they aren't seeing the results? What would you recommend to do to keep on going and to stay positive?
Yeah, for sure. I live by the 33% rule. And so for me, that is, I try to spend 33% of my time with people who are actually way further ahead in the game than I am. Right. So for me, transparently, we'll do 2 million this year. We did 2 million last year. We're on track to do 4 million this year. So we're on track to double what we did last year. And so I want to spend 33% of my time with people who are actually greater than, say, $5 million, because there are going to be a lot of learning moments there for me to also elevate. And then the other 33% of the time I spend with people that are kind of on my same level. And the reason I do that is so that I can bounce ideas back and forth and kind of get insight on things that are working for them. And there's a lot of growth, right? These are the people I talk that a lot of the times you're walking more day to day with, right? And so, for an example, Tony Robbins, it's hard to walk day to day with a Tony, right? If you have a business that's, 2 to 5 million. And so, but we can access him, we can get a part of his programs. We could jump into some of his podcasts, his teachings, his trainings. And so I can invest 33% of my time still with him. And then the final 33% of my time is I like to spend actually with people who aren't as fortunate to be where I'm at yet, but will probably get there. And this is just to remain grateful and to understand there are always people who aren't where you are. Right. And it's your opportunity to give back to those individuals. And I find myself, it's really empowering for me and it's inspirational. I get a lot of gratitude from it when I spend my time there, because it just reminds me of where I came from. Mm-hmm. Right. Going from less than 1,000 followers, a town of 3,300 people, when in my wildest dreams, my kind of pinnacle of financial success coming from where I'm from was like, if I could just make $100,000 a year, that would be everything for me. And so now that I have days where I make $100,000 and it's just mind blowing. And so I'm human like anyone else. I heard you kind of talk about this with JLD on your podcast. We all have times mentally where we battle things. And I can just tell you, I'm coming around a season, just probably 3 or 4 months ago where I was kind of self-doubting, like, why ain't I further along, on this journey at 32 years old? Because I can look around at 32 and I can pinpoint people, who are doing, 10 million, 20 million, 40 million a year. And it's very easy if you're playing this game of keeping up with the Joneses where you feel inadequate yourself, but it's like, whoa, 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 I've kind of got to this point where I believe in direction over destination. And so I have to remind myself that, where I'm at, I'm living in my own time zone, and I know my ship is headed in the direction of, say, 50 million, $100 million. And I know that I will get there one day. It just may be in a different time zone than someone else. And so I think time zones is super important for people to hear, because it's very easy to get discouraged when you meet a 19-year-old who's making $1 million a year, right? And you're like, I'm 35. What am I doing with my life? And so I just want everyone on this call to understand, I even deal with this now. I literally just came out of a season very recently where I got myself back grounded, and I felt inadequate. I felt like I was way behind in the game at 32, doing, 2 to 5 million a year. I felt like, because, I'm a big dreamer, right? And I know I kind of consider myself as someone who is willing to put in the work and has always kind of been able to be successful anything I put my mind to. And so I kind of see myself as a 1%. And so I'm quick to look at another 32-year-old making, say 20 million a year. And I go, wow, I can do that. There's no reason why I can't have that. And so it just makes me kind of self-reflect. And so the key message here, final takeaway, and then I'll kind of turn it back over to you, is just understand, if you find yourselves, guys, in one of those seasons where you're feeling inadequate, spend time with other people, because I guarantee you there are people who don't have what you have, and you are in a place of empowerment. And a lot of times, just remember, the arrow must be pulled back before it can be shot higher to new heights. And so if you find yourself in one of those downturns, right, where you just feel like you're being stretched, right, you feel like you're going backward, just understand that a lot of times it's that same pullback that's going to launch you and propel you to new heights and new growth.
I love it. I love it. So I know that some of you are looking at him going, oh my gosh, he makes $1 million a year, $2 million a year, now $5 million a year, and he's complaining about not making 20. It's a matter of where you're at and your perspective, right? So
100%.
What I want you to take out of this is, my goodness, this young man, 32 years old, started at 27. It's been a 5-year journey, didn't happen overnight. And now he's at a point where most of us want to get, right? But I mean, if he can do it, you can do it. I love what you said. If I see them and I think, like, if they can do it, I can. And just like Theodore Roosevelt says, comparison is a thief of joy. But I do want you to not compare, but to take notice that if Ryan White at 32 can do it, you have the same capability. And even with everything that's happening right now in the world, now is the time. So a few takeaways. You got to start, right?
Yes.
You got to start. We all are fearful. Try not to compare yourself too much, but also have goals. Think about who you're spending your time with, right? 30% with those that are achieving things that you want to, 33% with those that are at the same level to bounce back ideas, and 30% with people that are maybe not quite as fortunate, so you can contribute, which obviously will lead to your growth. Ryan, I really appreciate you. I love to see your success. It's so awesome. I love that you started. And I just want to end it with this. I always ask everybody, if there's one thing, whether it's personal or business or, health, relationships, whatever, what would your one piece of advice be to all of the people watching right now?
Yes. I love this question. And I always come back to an analogy of the snowball on top of the mountain. So the biggest thing is, if we just have to get the snowball moving. It comes down to the moment we can get the snowball moving down the mountain, it tends to pick up speed and momentum very, very, very quickly. The hardest part is having the courage to take that first step forward and get that thing moving. So just remember, guys, like Krista just said here on this call, we have to get started. You don't have to be great at something to start, but you have to start to be great. And the more you can continue to double down on this, I guarantee you're going to start to see results. And just remember, you're not alone. We all have fears. We all have doubts. We're all human beings. But I promise you, if you set your goals and set your vision and you show up every day and you lay bricks, you'll be surprised at how quick you'll start accomplishing those goals in front of you.
And even if you don't see, like, at first, when you're just laying one brick at a time, you don't really notice it, right? Like, you don't notice
100%.
it. And then, so you feel like, oh my gosh, I'm doing all this work and the wall's not getting bigger. But then all of a sudden one day, as you're loading the bricks, you can't get over the bricks because they're so high. But it didn't happen on day 1 or even day 100 sometimes. It takes time.
100%. It's almost like a great analogy is just imagine you show up every day and you're actually laying a piece of paper on top of a piece of paper. You know, the first month that you're laying 30 sheets of paper, you're like, what have I really been doing? You know, I've been wasting my time. And then I guarantee you those 6 months after laying a piece of paper down, you're going to look. And when you literally see a stack of paper that's, you know, a ruler tall, you're like, oh my goodness, like I can't believe that this much time, energy, and effort has went in. And usually it's about that time that you recognize how much time and energy you've put in. And you start to see the benefits of that, right? That's usually when success and the testimonies and all the cool things start to show up, is about the time you realize how much energy you've put into it.
It's so true. I feel like when people are starting a business, I mean, yes, of course, there's things that happen that seems like an overnight success, but usually it's around 10 to 12 months where when you're really trying to build a business that you kind of finally start to see it. And it's like, okay, I feel like it's happening. And then another 6 months goes by and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so busy. It's like, but it takes that time. Oh, girls, no. And most individuals aren't willing to put the time in. So just keep showing up, keep sticking there. Ryan, thank you so much. I appreciate you. I can't wait to be on your podcast. What's the name of your podcast, by the way? Will you tell everyone so they can come follow you?
Yeah, so we are setting up everything to actually launch that podcast. We've been getting a lot of people that's like, hey, love your accent, start a podcast, a lot of value here. So you will actually be one of the very first guests that we actually have on it. But we're super hopeful. We know that a ton of people are going to be checking that out. We're going to be leveraging all on our socials, and I think it's going to be a big thing. So we haven't dropped it yet.
Reach you right now, though. Somebody wants to follow you. Can you put
Yes.
you're going to get 500 more followers today, Ryan?
So my Instagram is just at CEO Ryan White. If you want to follow me there, you can check me out. If you want to check me out on Facebook, it's just official Ryan White, but I'm on all the platforms. Collectively, we have about 6 million across all channels.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Ryan, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you. You're amazing. Everyone follow him, and I'll see you soon.
Thank you so much, Krista. I appreciate you.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks so much for watching my video. You can learn more about how to be a successful real estate professional by watching other videos that I have. And be sure to subscribe to my channel. And as always, make it a great home selling and buying day.